Good morning. We've arrived at Monday. It is hard to believe. It seems like the weekends go so fast. This weekend, I taught over at the treasure house. Yesterday, took a walk with a neighbor down at the lake and spent time this weekend working on class formatting and formatting videos and storing all of my videos in order on YouTube, figuring out a way to file my videos and name them so that they're easy to locate. And it's so hard to believe that the weekend's already over. We're back to Monday. So Monday morning is chair yoga. Wednesday is gentle yoga. Thursday is vinyasa flow. And then Friday and Saturday is our power yoga for Saturday mornings. And we will always be bringing that to you from the treasure box when we can do it in person. And as I promised, all classes are provided by Zoom, whether they're in person or delivered from my home studio here. So welcome to Crestline. Inhale your shoulders up and then exhale them back down. And let's just sit for a moment, kind of near the front of the chair, drawing our shoulders back. Sitting with our shoulders stacked perfectly over our hips, leaning slightly into that experience, feeling our body in beautiful alignment and strength as we sit up nice and tall in this experience in just a seated pose in our chairs. As you breathe, draw your shoulders down, away from your ears, and onto your back. Breathe easily, inhaling through your nose and exhaling. Inhaling, growing your breath all the way to the crown of your head. And exhaling down. Inhaling. Exhaling. Inhaling. And exhaling all the way down. Let's do one more inhale. And exhale. Go ahead and sit back in your chair now that we've gotten a little bit into the breath. So when I pick a chair, ideally you want a chair where your feet can be flat on the floor, but I don't have that experience with these dining room chairs that I'm using for my chair yoga. But one of the things I like about this chair is that it is firm and isn't going to go anywhere. But a lot of people use folded chairs that have a little cushion on the seat, so you don't slide around too much. So, you know, those typical metal, I heard my cat, sorry. Those typical metal folding chairs are really excellent for doing yoga, for doing chair yoga. So now that we are sitting all the way back, what I have is my feet up on blocks, though, to accommodate my feet not touching the floor. So you are welcome to grab a set of blocks and use them for that purpose. We're going to start off in what I'm terming an easy seated half pose. So normally in easy seated pose, we have both of our feet up together, kind of like Indian style, cross-legged style, as we tell little kids, but you can't really accommodate that on a chair. So rather than do that, I'm going to keep my left foot on the block and take my right foot up and just kind of allow it. I'm going to move over to the left a little bit, just kind of allow it to sit with my right sole of my foot up against the inside of my left thigh. And I'm just going to sit up nice and tall. And I just want you to Take note of that experience. Observe how it allows you to sit nice and tall, drawing your shoulders down, because it allows you to sit on the outside of your right thigh and open up that hip just a little bit. Go ahead and breathe in one more time. And fully exhale. Go ahead and place that right foot down. Scooch over to the right side of your chair. Place your left foot on the chair with your left hip kind of laying across the chair, externally rotated, your sole of your foot, of your left foot, up against the inside of your right thigh. And again, just sit up nice and tall and get into that experience. Okay, let's go ahead and place our left foot back on the blocks. Take our right foot up, and instead of crossing it over, go ahead and bring it back as if you might want to move forward in your seat to accommodate this. I'm going to move forward a little bit in my seat. But you're sitting up, you're taking your left foot, not quite cross-legged, but as if you're doing lotus, sitting, doing lotus on the floor, doing half lotus. So just sit there with your foot drawn back, your right foot drawn back to the crease of your hip, sitting on top of your thigh, way at the top of the thigh. And again, just take note of what that feels like. You might be getting a nice stretch along the back of your right hip. You don't have to do anything, just sit up nice and tall. You don't have to bend into this or try to deepen this stretch. But whatever you're doing, make sure that you have an open energy channel for your breath to flow easily up and down your spine. Let's inhale one more time. And then exhale, gently let that foot down. Place your right foot on the block or on the floor and take your left foot and do the same thing where you're pulling your left foot up in like a half lotus position all the way up to the crease of your hip, allowing a little bit of a gentle opening along the back of that hip. Again, you don't have to do anything. You just have to sit up tall. And just breathe, focusing on drawing your breath up from the root of your spine all the way to the crown of your head. One more inhale. And then on your exhale, go ahead and let that down. I'm going to leave my blocks extended out. I might even extend them a little bit further as we go into a modified cobbler pose. So in cobbler pose, you're usually sitting on the floor, and the soles of your feet are placed together while your knees kind of flare out. And in cobbler pose, normally our feet are stretched out in front of us instead of up close to our bodies. But let me show you Baddha Konasana, which is like the closer form of it. Baddha Konasana, our feet are up against our pelvis or our, bottom of our hips. And sometimes it's called butterfly pose. And in Baddha Konasana, which means bound ankle, we have our feet bound together, held together with our hands, or sometimes people place them on their ankles, and the thighs are gravitating out towards the floor. But given that it's chair yoga and we don't really have the space to do that, we're going to do a modification of that by placing our soles of our feet together on the floor, moving to the front of our seat. So both of my sit bones are in firm contact with my chair. And I'm just initially just sitting here, getting into sitting up nice and tall, allowing with my feet bound together, allowing my knees to kind of fall down, using gravity, falling down towards the floor. And just getting into that experience a little bit of a light hip opener. There should be no stress in this pose. That's Edgar Allan Poe, my little black kitty there. The orange kitty that you saw over here in the window right now, that's Steve. Inhale. And then exhale. Inhale. And then on your exhale, start to lean into this. So you might need to bring your knees up just slightly to have, you know, that experience of not falling off of your chair. It depends on your chair situation. But I'm going to lean into this even more. And I'm going to bind my hands around my toes. And I'm just going to fold forward, still allowing my knees to go out to the sides, but creating a nice little gentle stretch in my lower spine. There is no stretch in the lower back muscles. It's just a gentle opening. There should be no tension. Okay, go ahead and sit back up. If it pleases you, go ahead and bring your blocks in if you're sitting on blocks, or have your feet on blocks and sitting back up. Let's go ahead and go into a gentle, easy twist to start off our morning. I'm going to go ahead and cross my left ankle over my right knee. I'm going to sit up nice and tall, take my right hand to my left knee, take my left hand to the chair behind me, and just start to engage that twist to my left, turning my entire body to the left. So you can pull your knee a little bit forward as you pull your body a little bit backward to engage that twist, which you will feel in your hips. This is your first twist of the day. I don't want you torquing your body, yanking it over. Just take your time. One more inhale. And then on your exhale, go ahead and turn to the front into a neutral position. Go ahead and release your left foot down to the floor, down to that block, and take your right foot, crossing your right ankle over your left knee. Once again, placing your left hand on your left knee as you place your right hand on the chair behind you, pulling your left knee forward as you pull your body to the right, perhaps looking over your shoulder. Again, this is a gentle spinal twist. It's not meant to be deep in the pose. We're just starting to open things up. Chair yoga is meant to be gentle and kind to the body. One more inhale. And on the exhale, go ahead and turn to the front. Place your foot down on the floor. And now we're going to go into our first crescent poses of the day. So I'm going to go ahead and move my blocks out of the way so I'm not messing around with them. I'm going to turn my body to the right, take my left foot behind me with my toes on the floor. So in order to accomplish this, I do kind of have to move to the front of the seat of the chair. And you see that my left leg is strong and straight behind me. My right toes are touching the floor because I can't have them flat on the floor. Now, if I want them flat on the floor, that can be accomplished by placing my block right underneath my foot. And the cats are getting into it with each other. How about that? Actually, I like that experience quite a bit. So I've got my foot up on the block. My left foot is behind me, strong and straight. My toes are into the floor. My heel is up high. Go ahead and inhale up. So get into this experience with this of rooting down into the chair, rising your hands up high, and stretching out your left leg strong and straight behind you, creating a nice stretch along the front of your left hip. You don't need to go for any kind of arch in the back. Just rising your hands up high, growing your breath from the base of your spine all the way to the crown of the head. Drawing your shoulders down your back and away from your ears. One more inhale, reaching up high. And then on your exhale, you might take your other block if you can't reach the floor. And we'll just go into a gentle twist. So place your left hand on your block or on the floor to the left of your foot. Keep your left foot anchored behind you. Keep your right foot firmly on the floor or on the block. Placing your right hand on your hip and start to twist, just like we do if we're standing up. Now, if you want to, you can raise up your right hand to engage more of that twist. It's not as easy on the chair as it is when you're suspended in air. Making sure that you continue to breathe. Inhale, exhale. One more inhale, and then exhale. Place your right hand on the chair. Go ahead and let's take that to the other side. So I'm going to place my block that I'll put my hand on one side. Place my block I'll put my foot on the other side. And sitting kind of near the front of my chair, moving my right foot back in space. Toes on the floor, heel up high. Moving back into that experience to create a stretch on this lower hip. You might have noticed that my back actually moved backwards. That was before my hands even moved. Go ahead and bring your hands up. And on the exhale, bring your shoulders down as you rise your hands up in space and continue to move back into your back body plane. One more inhale, reaching. And then on the exhale, go ahead and go down to that block on the floor as we engage in an easy twist. So, turning to the left, placing my left hand on my left hip, facing the wall. And if I want to, I can rise my hand up. Continue to breathe. One more inhale. And then exhale, go ahead, place your left hand on the chair. And go ahead and move to the front of the chair. Now, we're going to go into a warrior series. And I'm not going to have a twist in that, so I won't need that second block. So in the warrior series, what we're doing is we're placing our left foot firmly on the floor in front of us. And I just realized the weird way that I did this. And then our right foot is in warrior one position behind us. So you can see that I've got my left foot kind of parallel to what would be the back side of a rectangular mat. But I don't have a rectangular mat. I'm going to go ahead and bring my hands up. And again, rooting my heel, rooting the whole outside edge of my right foot into the floor as I rise up. This is a strong pose. I'm moving into my back body plane. I've got my right leg strong and straight behind me. My left leg is sitting on the chair, my left foot on the block. And you can do a lot with this pose to really strengthen your hips by drawing your gluteus muscles together on your back. One more inhale, reaching high. And on the exhale, let's open this up into warrior two. So in order to do that, I have to do a little bit of adjusting of both of my feet, and that's okay. And then as you can see, because you're able to see my backside, I'm pulling my shoulder blades together. My hands are at hip height. I'm drawing my belly button into the spine, so tucking my tailbone slightly, just as I do when I'm standing, and using my gluteus muscles here to draw my hip out so that my left knee is trailing towards the outside of my left baby toe. One more long breath. And then on the exhale, let's reverse our warrior. So same thing. I'm just resting my left arm on the back of my right arm on the back of my right leg. And I'm drawing my left hand up towards the ceiling, creating a stretch all along here. My hips have remained stationary, and I'm still using those gluteus muscles to draw my left knee outward towards my left toes. One more inhale, reach. And then on your exhale, go ahead and place your forearm on top of your left knee. Draw your right hand up into space. So this is the first version of side angle, or you can extend your side angle by drawing your right arm alongside your right ear, drawing your hand to the front in the same direction as your foot. And then use your inner spiral to draw your right shoulder back and expose your heart center more to the ceiling. One more inhale and reaching. And then exhale, go ahead and draw that hand down. However you need to get out of this pose, let's do so. But now let's keep our same positioning on the chair in terms of facing the original direction, but all I'm doing is changing my body. So I am actually going to be turning my right foot out. I'm placing my left foot behind me, but I want to do it from this direction so that you can see my body from both directions on the chair. So now as you can see, my left foot behind me is somewhat parallel to the mat, and move my block slightly to the front of the chair. And I think I'll move it back towards the leg of the chair. Okay, so I've got that behind me as if I were in warrior one legs. Okay, with the chair, you have to do a little bit of manipulating of which direction the foot goes in. So now once my foot is cemented down, the outside edge of my foot is sealed onto the mat, then I pull my belly button back in space, back against the spine, tilt my tailbone slightly. That allows me to have nice firm contact with the chair with my right leg. Then go ahead and rise out with the hands. Pulling the belly button up against the spine, drawing our shoulder blades away from our ears, drawing our shoulders back and down. Nice, strong posture. Inhaling the breath from the base of the spine all the way to the crown of the head. One more inhale, reaching your hands. And then exhale, let's open up our warrior two. So you might have to adjust your left foot slightly, bringing it back. And in warrior two now, I'm using my gluteus muscles to draw my right knee back towards my baby toes. My hands are parallel with my shoulders. At shoulder height, my arms are in equal distance from the floor with one another. Pulling my shoulders back and away from my ears. Continuing to breathe from the base of my spine all the way to the crown of my head. One more inhale. And then on the exhale, bend your right elbow and place it on the top of your right leg. And then draw your left hand up into space. And if you want to go for the extended version, go ahead and draw your left hand alongside
your left ear. So my left arm is trailing alongside the left side of my head. And then you can use your inner spiral to spiral your left shoulder back. So expose your heart center up towards the ceiling. One more inhale. So on the exhale, you know, we didn't do our reverse warrior. So let's go into humble warrior. Go ahead and place your left hand on your left thigh, drawing your right hand up towards the ceiling. One more inhale. And then exhale, bring that hand down. Now we're going to get out of our chair and we're going to stand beside our chair as we go into a triangle series. I'm going to move my blocks out of the way. I'm going to take my chair. And there are two ways that we can do this. I'm going to go ahead and show you the version where you use the seat of your chair instead of the back of your chair for your support. So stand right in front of the chair, kind of knees close to the chair. Take your left foot back as if we are going into warrior one. Now go ahead and open that up as if you're going into warrior two. So you've got your feet so that your left foot is parallel with the back side of your mat on the short side, and your right toes are pointed to the front of the short side, front of the mat, the short side, front of the mat. Go ahead and draw your shoulders back. I want you to inhale your chest up to the sky. So on the exhale, place your right hand on the chair. And we're going to go ahead and move into triangle pose. So in order to do that, first we want to straighten out our right leg. And if you want, you can draw your hand to the front of or to the back of the chair to create that parallel experience of your torso to the floor. If you need to remain up high, that is totally acceptable. I want you to gauge this based on how much flexibility you have in your hamstring, how much mobility you have in that hip, how much strength you have in your core. But I would like you to engage your inner spiral so that your right thigh is rotating towards, from the inside, from the bottom up. Imagine there's an arrow rotating up so that your knee is facing the ceiling. So you're rotating your leg backwards, basically, okay? And then your body, you're rotating it forward as you draw your left shoulder back in space. Then go ahead and draw your left arm up, and you engage this as much as you want. So in my circumstance, I have a lot of flexibility in my sideways and a lot of rotation of my hips. I want you to focus on tilting your tailbone towards the floor, still drawing your belly button up against the spine to protect your lower back, and pulling your left shoulder back in space, stacking your left shoulder firmly on top of your right shoulder. So I also have a rung on the bottom of my chair that I may use as my support instead, so that my right arm can be underneath my body. And just keep working that pose. Sometimes it's nice to do a supported triangle like this, because honestly, it's a lot of work to go into the fully extended triangle pose. And sometimes it's nice to just work on our alignment by using the support of a chair or blocks. Go ahead and inhale one more time. But on the exhale, we're going to go into a revolved triangle. So in order to do that, place both of your hands on the chair, bend your right foot just slightly, and bring up your left foot and turn your left toes forward. So this is like setting up your pyramid pose. In fact, let's go ahead and do a pyramid while we're here. Draw your right hip back in space. So I don't know if you saw the change, but here my hips are slightly open towards the camera, but now I'm drawing my right hip back and bringing my left hip forward, and the squares off my hips. Go ahead and inhale the crown of your head forward, and on the exhale, start to fold down towards the chair, isolating that stretch along the back of your right hamstring. You can place your elbows on the chair for support if you want. Continue to draw your right hip back in space as you draw the crown of your head forward. Again, this is a really lovely way to work on alignment, to work on isolating those muscles right behind your leg. Go ahead and rise up. Place your left hand underneath your heart center and place your right hand on your hip. Continue to draw your right hip back as you draw your left hip forward. And let's engage in a twist towards the wall. Now this may be as high as much as you want to twist, and that's acceptable. You can also go down on your elbow if you want more of a twist and you want your torso more parallel to the floor. I'm going to go ahead and rise up my hand, keeping my left leg behind me strong and straight. So this is a slightly different experience than when I do revolve triangle without a chair. And what I'm really noticing is that it's really isolating those hip muscles and creating quite a stretch along the back of my hip, quite a stretch along my right hamstring, quite a stretch along the back of my left hamstring. So it's really a very beneficial pose. Continue to breathe. One more inhale. And then exhale, place your right hand on the chair. Go ahead and rise up. Bend your leg. Place your hands on the chair. Come back to the chair. Keeping your legs against the chair, take your right foot back in space. Turn your right foot parallel to the mat and bend your left leg. And then you're rising up into that warrior two experience with those legs. Go ahead and straighten out your left leg, remembering to use that rotational force of rotating your inner thigh up towards the ceiling. So rotating your hip outwards. You may not actually see anything. You will feel it though. And then going ahead and moving our shoulder towards the chair, tilting out this hip, just moving that energy forward, placing your hand on the chair. It can be like this, or it can be more like this, or it can be elbow on the chair, or it can be hand on the rung, whatever works for you. Go ahead and draw your right shoulder back, drawing your back into that invisible wall behind you, tilting your tailbone, isolating this stretch along the hamstring of your left leg. And then when you have created that beautiful triangle with your body, you may go ahead and rise up your right hand to the ceiling, continuing to draw your right shoulder back as you draw your left shoulder underneath. I have restless pets this morning. My cats want to get into the bedroom where the dog is. One more inhale. And then on the exhale, draw your right hand to the seat of the chair. Bring your left hand up. Slightly bend your left leg as you bring your right foot forward, turning your toes forward, setting up for a pyramid pose. Again, draw your left hip back as you draw your right hip forward. Did you see that change in my hips? Watch it again. Drawing them. See how that straightens out my hips? Go ahead and inhale as you draw the crown of your head forward. And then on the exhale, go ahead and descend down to your chair. Again, remembering to keep your right hip drawing forward as you draw your left hip backward to square off those hips. And then you can get as deeply into this pyramid pose as you want, as long as you keep in mind the principles of drawing your belly button into the spine, of drawing your left hip back as you draw your right hip forward. But right now, I'm going for a slightly deeper stretch by allowing my forehead to touch the chair. Continuing to breathe, long, gentle breaths through the nose and out of the nose. One more inhale. Now your exhale, go ahead and rise up. Place your right hand on the chair. Place your left hand on your hip. I'm placing my right hand more underneath my heart center, drawing my left hip back as I draw my right hip forward, as I start to engage in the revolution and the revolving of the twisting of this pose. Okay? And then go ahead and raise up your left hand in revolve triangle. I'm going to drop down to my elbow. Continuing to move my left shoulder back in space as I draw my right shoulder forward so that my shoulders are stacked upon one another. One more inhale. And then exhale, go ahead and allow your left hand to descend to the chair. Use your right hand to sit you up. Bend your left leg and bring your right foot in to join your left. Go ahead and stand up. So the next pose that we're going to do is going to be Warrior 3, using the support of the chair. So you might choose to turn your chair the other way if you don't have the strength to really get into that pose. So I'm going to use the full length of my mat. I'm going to move out into a modified downward facing dog. Oh, but I need more space. So I need to move my chair even more forward. Okay, so I'm in a modified downward facing dog. And then in this dog, notice I'm pulling my hips back. I'm getting a beautiful stretch. A gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous stretch of my shoulders, drawing my hips back in space as I'm allowing my heart center to descend towards the floor. Go ahead and rise up. Place your left foot firmly underneath your body, okay? And then take your right foot and raise it up to hip height. And then go ahead and create a letter T with your body, using your hands supported by the chair. While you're in this position, focus on tilting your right toes towards the floor so your right foot is flexed. Draw your belly button into your spine and don't sink into your left hip. Kind of rise out of the hip to create this strong, stable foundation in this pose. Now, if you were doing this without the support of the chair, you would be using, really using your core muscles. And you're using them right now, just not to the degree you would. One way that you can further engage them is creating a slight bend in your left leg and using the muscles on the back of your thigh to lift your left leg up even more. And then continue to rise up out of the hips by just kind of tilting the tailbone and pulling your lower back up just a little bit. So not allowing it to sway down, but pulling your belly button up against the spine and creating a neutral or a slightly arched experience in the middle and lower back. And then exhale that foot down. You might have felt like you were really working, so if you want to stand up and kind of shake out your legs, you totally can do that. Now, let's go back into that downward facing dog, stretching out the lower spine, stretching out the front of our shoulders, enjoying that stretch. And rising back up into Warrior 2. So standing up nice and tall, remember that sensation of standing firmly over that, your hips over your ankles, okay? Then go ahead and grab the front of your chair, keeping that alignment. Raise your left leg up to hip height, lifting up out of the lower spine, out of that right hip. I've engaged all the muscles on the front and top of my right leg, and then I'm using my left leg independently of my right to rise up my leg higher to hip height, using just the muscles on the back of the leg, drawing my belly button in against the spine, rising up out of the hips by creating a slight what feels like a reverse arch of my lower spine. Probably doesn't look like that on the camera at all. And I'm not sinking into this hip. I'm rising up out of it. Using the muscles of my right leg to keep me firmly rooted to the floor. Using the muscles of my left leg, the back muscles, to lift the leg up in space. My left toes are pointed towards the floor. Inhale. Exhale. One more inhale. And then exhale. Lower that leg down. Go ahead and stand up and wiggle them out. I actually felt my heart rate rise up a little bit with that, so that's good. And then go ahead, and let's go back into that modified downward facing dog by pushing away from the chair, drawing our hips back, allowing our heart center to descend towards the floor. Go ahead and rise up. I'm going to take my chair and I'm going to turn it around. And we're going to go into a modified pigeon pose. So placing our hands on the chair, take our right foot and place it on the chair. You might just kind of hop your left foot back in space a little bit. And then what you do is you walk your feet to the edge of the chair. So moving them to the left, go ahead and then kind of sit on the chair. So you've got your right knee out to the side, your left foot is to, or your right foot is to the left, and then you've got your left leg strong and straight behind you. And then what you can do is just place your hands on the back of the chair and push against the chair to create a stretch along your left hip. So you're stretching out the back of your right hip and the front of your left hip, using the chair to support you. Let's do one more breath. And then on the exhale, go ahead and unravel out of that, placing your hands on the chair, drawing your hips back in space to pull your right foot off the chair. Take your left foot and step on the chair. So your right foot is in the same position on the mat as your left foot was. Start to walk your left foot to the right of the chair, and then go ahead and move forward and sit the outside edge or the outside of your left thigh on the chair. Again, your left knee is to the left, your left foot is to the right. Go ahead and place your hands on the top of the chair. Straighten out your leg behind you, creating a stretch along the front of your right hip. And then use your hands to push against the chair and rise up your heart center. So you're getting a stretch along the outside of your left thigh and the front of your right thigh. One more inhale. And then on the exhale, go ahead and unravel out of that, using the strength of your left hip to pull you back in space. So pull your left hip back and then drop your foot. And be careful not to do what I just did with my chair, returning your chair to the center of your mat. We're going to do a modified Gomukhasana, which is cow-faced pose. So you place the blocks on the floor, placing your feet on the blocks. I actually have to move my blocks a little bit more forward to accommodate that. So I'm sitting up nice and tall. So normally in Gomukhasana, we have our legs stacked upon one another on top of us, sitting on the floor. We have them stacked so that one foot is behind us and one, our right foot is behind us underneath our left hip, and our right foot is joining up, or left foot is joining up with our right hip, stacked on top of that thigh. That's a little hard to do in a chair. So what you can just do is allow, you can draw your foot back if you want, or you can just allow your leg to be crossed on top of the other one. It's really whatever experience you want to have here. I'm going to allow mine Remember early in the routine, we kind of created that lotus experience by placing our foot on top of our thigh up in the crease. I'm not going to be like that, but I'm going to have my calf kind of moving back towards the crease of my leg to create that stacked sensation. I'm going to go ahead and rise my arms up. I'm going to take my right arm and bend it and pat my back behind me. And take my other left arm and bring it up behind me and up to join up with my right hand. And I just want you to lean back into that hand, lean back into that experience. If you can't grab your hand, that's okay. You can just move towards that sensation by drawing your hand down your back and drawing your left hand up your back. If your hands don't touch, that's okay. You can also just grab your shirt, whatever you prefer, whatever you're able to do. One more inhale. And on the exhale, go ahead and unravel your arms. Place your left foot on the blocks or on the floor. I'm going to take my right foot and create that same experience by drawing my right ankle up to the top of my leg. I'm going to take my hands up, and I'm going to pat my back with my left arm and draw my right arm behind me and up. Now, interestingly, it's a different experience on each side for me. On my left side, I cannot grasp my hands together. So I'm not even trying. I'm just drawing my left shoulder back, drawing my elbow high up into the air as I reach down for my upper back with my left hand, and I'm using my right hand to reach up towards those fingertips. I can get the fingertips to touch each other, but a lot of times they cannot clasp one another, and that's totally okay. One more inhale. And then on the exhale, go ahead and unravel your hands. Take your left foot off of your right, or right foot off of your left leg, rather. My boyfriend was just telling me how funny it is, but I'm always reversing the order of my body parts. He goes, just tell people to marry you. Just tell people to follow your voice. Well, either way, I'm creating confusion sometimes when I do that. So we're going to move into our final resting pose of our sequence today. It is important at the end of every sequence that you take time to go into a meditative state, a relaxed state for 5 to 10 minutes. So what I want you to do is inhale your shoulders up to the sky, and then exhale them back down and move your body back up against the chair, relaxing against the chair. You don't have to worry about great body alignment and positioning now. Now is the time to release any tension from your muscles. And what I want you to do is a scan from the top of your head all the way to your toes and look for areas of your body where you might be holding tension. So one way you might be holding tension might be in your hips. It might be in your shoulders. Those are common places. And the way that you can remind yourself to release that tension is to allow your shoulders to fall back and down against the chair. Take note of your breathing. Is your breathing able to be long and slow and controlled? Or does it get stuck? Go ahead and inhale. Draw attention to the crown of your head and release any tension out of the top of your head. Release any tension out of the back of your head and out of the back of your neck. Inhale. Release any tension out of your facial muscles, out of your chin, out of the front of your neck. Inhale. As you exhale, allow your shoulders to fall back and down against the back of the chair. Release any tension out of the muscles of your chest. Inhale. Drawing attention to your spinal column as it continues down along the back side of your chair, allowing the chair to support your back, relaxing all of those muscles. Inhale. And then on your exhale, relax your hips, relax your thighs, relax your knees. And then on your next inhale, relax your ankles and your feet and your toes. This week we are focusing on the chakra of Manipura, which is found in your solar plexus. You might have noticed this morning that I'm wearing the color yellow, which is the color of this chakra. And this chakra reminds us of our strength. This is the center of our core, from where we generate all of our movement. To have a strong back, we need to have a strong core. So you'll hear frequent reminders in class to pull the belly button into the spine and engage those core muscles. So I was intentful to design a chair yoga class today that allowed us to do that. The only pose I left out of this sequence is chair pose. So if you go back on the replay and watch this, you can, not chair pose, I'm sorry, boat pose. So if you go back and replay this class, at the very end, before we start to get into our relaxation sequence, if you want, you can throw in a boat pose. You can just do it by turning to the side of the chair and leaning back a little bit, allowing all these muscles of the core to engage. I want you to imagine a time in your life when you created an intention, you created a goal. I want you to remember what that intention or that goal was. And I want you to remember how you planned to reach that goal. I want you to remember the steps that you took to reach that goal and how you honored your plans in the achievement of that goal. And I want you to remember what it felt like, that sense of accomplishment when you achieved that goal. As you sit here and breathe, I want you to focus on that sense of accomplishment, on that sense of high self-esteem you may have experienced for accomplishing something that you intended, by creating an intention and meeting that intention. And while you're thinking about that, I'm going to go ahead and play some gentle music for you that is reflective of the frequency of this chakra. want to invite you back to the present. Go ahead and sit up a little taller. Go ahead and flutter your eyes open. Inhale our hands overhead. Exhale them down. Inhale our hands up. Exhale our hands down. And then one more inhale up. Exhale, bring our hands to our forehead. Bring them to our heart center. Inhale. And then exhale, bow over your hands. I want to thank you for rising with me early to participate in this chair yoga class. Our next class is Monday night meditation tonight at 8 p.m. I invite you to come dressed in your PJs, ready for bed, as we learn all about Manipura. And we do some breathing exercises to accompany it, and some hand mudras, and some meditative exercises, followed by some light stretching and breathing into a relaxed meditative pose. The light in me joins the light in you. The yogi in me honors the yogi in you. Namaste. Have a wonderful Monday.